Hello everyone. Today's going to be a little different. I won't be doing a walkthrough of the challenge Mobius. Instead, I want to use as an example to address something I've seen in comment sections of my videos. I've been asked, is it okay or right to use walkthroughs? The short answer is yes. The longer but better answer is also yes, but you need to understand how to use them. So before we dive into that, if you enjoy my content, please leave a like and a comment, and if you really enjoy it, please subscribe. And I'm getting back on the wheel to making videos. I'll be doing more walkthroughs of course, but I'm also going to start trying to focus on some videos on techniques and places where you can find information, doing reviews on it, and helping you get some better insights on how to be better at CTFs and hacking in general. So let me start by introducing the concept of a term that you may or may not have heard of called script kiddie. Now, if you've been around in the hacker sphere for any amount of time and you've done some in-depth study on the attack and defense side especially, you probably know this term. If you don't, basically a script kiddie is someone who uses tools that are developed by somebody else to commit attack. Now, there is a big difference between a script kiddie and a beginner hacker who uses the same tools, much like probably most of you are doing as you're new to CTFs. The biggest difference is that script kiddies typically don't care how the tool works or why it works, just as long as it works. Whereas someone who is truly a beginner hacker is interested in how they work, wants to know why they work. That's usually the defining factor that separates the two, at least in my opinion, my understanding. And I talk about that because it's kind of the same in the CTF world with write-ups. You can either choose to use write-ups as a crutch and use them all the time, depend solely on them, never develop your skills or your understanding, or you can use them as a guide when you hit a hard point. And that's kind of what I want to go over today, is how to use walkthroughs correctly. So here are my 3 points on how to use a walkthrough. First, set a time limit before you pull up a walkthrough. I can't recall the YouTuber that I heard this from the first time, but they said they waited an hour before they used a walkthrough. And I really like this idea, and I do agree with it. Now, for me, the hour doesn't start when you start the box. Instead, the hour starts when you start a phase of the attack on the box. And if you're not familiar with the general phases, well, I typically break it down to 4 categories. First off, you have your recon, scanning, and enumeration phase. This is where you've got the box up and running, you're doing your nmap checks, you're taking notes of what services are running, you're doing your directory scans, stuff like that, just trying to get a picture of what it is you're looking at. The second one is your exploitation phase. This is where you've done enough recon where you think you might have an idea or two of possible attack surfaces, and so you're researching on how to exploit them, or you're trying to implement exploits. That's what this phase mostly focuses on, is trying to get that initial access to the machine. The third phase is a combination. It's the maintain access second recon phase. Basically, the idea here is that you've gained access to the machine and you need to make sure that you can get back here if you need to. So either exploit simple enough that you can rerun it, you have an access to an account where you can either steal SSH keys or implement your own keys so you can log in as that user, stuff like that. The second recon phase aspect of it is learning what you can do with the account that you have, what you can see on the machine, what's running on the machine, is it a Docker container, trying to basically enumerate the machine a second time but from the inside. And then the last phase is, once you get done with that, is deciding, do you need to do a lateral movement or can you go straight to a privilege escalation? Now, these last two are kind of cyclical. You can kind of go over and over again depending on how many accounts you need to go through to get to your end goal. But for me, I pretty much break up a box into these 4 categories. And so as I start each one, that's when the hour timer starts. Let's say you're doing your enumeration phase, right? You've been going at it for a while and you just cannot figure out how to execute the exploit, like with the box I have here in the background, Mobius. I discovered SQL vulnerability and it looked like an LFI was possible, but I wasn't sure how to execute the LFI with the SQL to get it to work. So this is where, in this room, I pulled up a walkthrough. So that brings us to the second point. When you do pull up a walkthrough, just look at the section you were having a problem with. Sure, go ahead and read all the stuff you've already done, right? You may gain some insight. You may see a technique that you didn't think about. You may learn to look at something in a way you didn't think about looking at it before, right? Or there may have been something that didn't seem that important to you that the person in the walkthrough goes, this is something you need to pay attention to, right? You can learn from that. Once you get to the section where you're stuck at, read that and stop stop. Don't go any further. Try to implement their solution. Try to understand why it's working, how it's working, and stuff like that to the best you can in the time you have. If not, make a note to come back to it after you're done with the box and do a further deep dive into it. Like for this Mobius box, I'm actually been taking some time and reading some of the articles that the walkthroughs link to, trying to understand a little bit more about the encryption method used. And the last point, if you've seen any of my other videos, you've been around my channel for a while, you know this is something I harp about almost nonstop. Take notes. Don't only take notes of what you have done, but also take notes of what the walkthrough says. When you take time to gather these notes together and make a single source for you to look back at with future challenges, this is going to give you a more information to work with and to use, especially if you copy the links the walkthrough provides to articles linking about the techniques or to GitHub with tools. You would be surprised as you do more and more in CTS how many times you come across the same thing. And there's, I hate to say it, but there's popular phases of things. Right now, I notice one of the biggest thing is, ooh, we're in a Docker container. Okay, did they properly secure your mount points? Like, honestly, if I see I'm in a Docker container, that's the first thing I'm going to is looking at, running the mount command or going checking the etc fs tab to see if the way drives are mounted, if they're pointing back to a spot on the physical machine. Because oftentimes, if you can get to there, then you can navigate the main machine or you can circumvent the Docker. In fact, that's what I did with this. There was a mount point that allows you access to the original machine, and I literally just navigated to the root directory and dropped my SSH credentials into its authorized keys and then SSH in as root. That's how I gained access to the main box. The biggest thing with all of this is to understand that at first you will probably rely on walkthroughs a lot, and that's okay. One of the biggest issues in the computer world with everything, from database workers, programmers, to hackers, is being afraid to ask for help. Sometimes you will get it and sometimes maybe not. I hate to admit it, but especially in the hacker world, depending on the people you surround yourself with, you may get made fun of when you ask for help. I can say though that the Try Hack Me and the Hack the Box Discord channels are great places to go and ask for challenges on those platforms respectively. Just note that you won't always get a direct answer, but oftentimes you will get hints, clues, or advice on a box, especially if it's a new or an active box. Just the rules of the platform. You'll find that a good number of people in both channels will provide hints for you or maybe even blog posts or something for you to read and let you figure it out. Please do not feel like a fake or a failure because you have to end up using a walkthrough. Going back to the room that I opened up in the video, like I've talked, I had to. I've come a long way in my hacker journey, but I know that there are still boxes that are classified as hard, even some mediums, that challenge me. And that there's still things I need to learn. That's the whole point of this game, of being in the hacker space, of the hacker mindset. You're just going to have to accept the fact you're always going to be learning. There's always going to be stuff you don't know and that you're going to have to find out, that you're going to have to learn, that you're going to have to experiment and play with. That's kind of part of the fun of being a hacker. Much as I hate to say it, both ethical and unethical. It's the same on both sides, really. So with all that being said, I hope you go away from this video with a better understanding about how to approach using walkthroughs and that you feel better about using them. They're just another great learning tool out there for you along your cybersecurity journey. I left links down below to the Discord channels for both Try Hack Me and Hack the Box. Just remember to only ask about challenges in their respective platform channels. I hope you have a good day, and I'll catch you next time.